Okay, I'm going to record the class. That's perfect. So those of you who missed it, I just defined irony, protagonist, antagonist, which is listed on day 21 in Classroom. Is everybody following Google Classroom pretty well? Okay, I am going to make mistakes. And I love some of you have been saying, hey, just so you know, like really nice. I appreciate that. Because sometimes the text comes through like, you forgot this. And I'm like, well, there you go. You know, you're going to tell me the one bad thing I did. And, you know, I need words of affirmation.
It's your shirt.
It's my shirt. There you go. That's right. Grace is enough. There you go. Okay, so let me pass these out. I'm just going to, yeah, I'm going to take like half. You guys take some. All right, don't write your name on it. Circle your level. Let's just kind of get these going around. Oh, but I need one. And I think, Miss Stephanie, I have an extra copy for you if it went well. Okay. Write your name and circle your level, and then we're going to talk about this quiz.
We have some extra ones.
Sidge, listen to me. Pass them around.
I got judged for that.
Do not zone out right now, because if you zone out, you're going to miss the instructions on the quiz, and then you're going to come to me and you're going to ask me for something that I just said, and I'm going to go like this. Like that. That's what I'm going to do, just like my dad used to do. Okay? I'm going to do that thing with my face. So listen, do not zone out. Everybody said we are not zoning out. No zoning out, right? No zoning out. Okay, write your name on the top. I must be able to read your writing. Some of your writing is bad. Olivia, where is Olivia? Her writing is cool. Really like, is it you that I really like the writing of? Yes.
I've seen her.
It's like a typewriter. It's super cool. If you have bad handwriting, fix it when I'm reading something. I've got to be able to read it. If I can't read a word, it's going to be wrong. I can't be sitting here with 30 papers, spinning them in circles, trying to figure out what word you wrote. Okay? One? Anybody else need one? Okay, then I think I got one for you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You should write your name. Do not forget your name. There are too many of you. I do not want to figure it out. You should circle the level you are. Okay? I have a few of you, one or two, that have been kind of going back and forth between Logophile and Roadster, depending on some stuff. Just give me the level that you normally are. That's fine. Okay? Now, here's what we're going to do. We are going to, Logophiles, please do not use your notes. That's your attempt. Can you pull out your notes? Yes. Okay? I'm challenging you. Okay? Try to not use your notes. Roadsters, attempt to not use your notes. Lights, bring out your notes. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to Chapter 5 of Henry David Thoreau's Solitude in class here. But I'll be really honest with you. It's long, and it's got a lot of the same concepts. So it'll be okay if you veer off while we're listening and do a few other things. Does that make sense? Because it's a general theme of the chapter you're going to get to understand. Okay? While we are listening, you're going to hear the following quote. So listen for this quote. And what you guys can do is when you hear it, everybody just, wave your hands around and go, that's it, I hear it, okay? I experienced sometimes that the most sweet and tender, the most innocent and encouraging society may be found in any natural object. Even for the poor misanthrope and the most melancholy man, there can be no very black melancholy to him who lives in the midst of nature. Okay? Now remember, we're talking about Thoreau, and you guys watched a little video on him. Do you remember that? You guys remember that? He was a naturalist, transcendentalist. We talked about what the meanings were for those things, right? Is everybody remembering? Everybody remember what transcendentalism is? Somebody provide me a definition, please.
Isn't it kind of like where you're self-sustaining and not reliant on sources from other places?
Very well stated. Very well stated. I don't think I could have stated it better. Good job. Yeah, did everybody hear that? Okay, so you're analyzing, you're not, I like the way he said it. That was really great. It's influenced by romanticism, right? But you're really paying attention to nature, not the systems that govern you. Okay, you can be self-reliant on your own. Okay, so Logophile. Now I've got a 1A, 1B, 1C. You are one of those three. Okay, in the space that is provided under 1C, you will answer that question. Does everybody get that? This is your time to not zone out and then raise your hand and say, where do I answer the question? And then I say, I said it, okay? So the logophiles, you are going to tell me how that quote, when you hear it or just by reading it, fits in with the idea of transcendentalism. Hint, you must combine your understanding of transcendentalism with your understanding of what you are listening to. Everybody understand the question? Okay, roadsters, you're going to try to do that without your notes. Lights, if you feel you can do that, go for it. If you can only just explain what transcendentalism is, do that. Okay, and you should have plenty of stuff in your notes on transcendentalism from stuff we've been doing. All right, while listening to this chapter, logophiles, write down 2 things that jump out at you and share the reason they jumped out at you. Now, you're not going to be able to catch an entire quote, right? But you can catch a concept. Okay, roadsters, write down 2 things that jump out at you only. Don't have to include a reason. Lights, write down 1 thing that jumped out at you. Everybody following so far? Okay, flip over your paper. Okay, now we're going to talk about irony, which I just talked about, right? And if you're paying attention, you got it. Okay, so logophiles, please provide an example for literature for irony. Oh, did I give one? Maybe I did. While simultaneously defining it. Roadsters, attempt to combine an example with the definition. See how well you can write this, guys. Can you explain irony while sharing an example? Lights, I would just like you to define it or provide an example, either one. All right, Scarlet Letter. You all watched the whole movie, right?
Yeah.
Sit down and face it.
Okay, that was the assignment. So this is where I'm going to find out that you watched the whole thing. You must prove to me that you wrote the whole thing there, watched the whole thing. If you didn't, it will become evident. Okay? I have to be very honest with you. I was a master when I was in school of saying a lot of things that didn't mean anything with words. My teacher would actually write sometimes, I don't think you have a clue what you're talking about, but that was fantastic grammar. I mean, I would do that all the time in science. So I'm keen on it. I'll be able to see through it because I did it all the time. Especially in science, because I really had no idea what I was talking about. So, logophiles, I want you to provide a short summary. Incorporate into the summary the theme and possible moral lesson. 2 things. Theme, moral lesson. All right? That means you have to know what theme is and know what a moral lesson is.
Could you define theme again?
I should not have to redefine theme again. I'm not going to. Okay? You guys should know what the theme of something is. It's the whole kind of idea of the thing. Okay, so do that according to your level. And then there are 4 questions on the bottom. Logophiles, try to fill in the blanks without using the word bank. So what I did, don't look at the bottom yet. I wrote the words backwards.
Okay.
Okay, so my logophiles, you can put a piece of paper over it or hide it and try to challenge yourself. Okay, or there you go, Jan, brilliant. Fold the paper, excellent. Okay, Gabe, you're going to try without reading it. So flip the paper. Roadsters, try it, see if you can do it. Okay, Lights, you can use the word bank. But I did write them backwards, so you will have to read backwards. Hopefully I did not spell them wrong. Okay, yay. All right? Does everybody understand? So this, what we're going to listen to is about 20 or 25 minutes. You won't need to listen to the whole thing intensely. So you'll be able to do your quiz while you're doing it once you kind of get the general gist. This is considered Thoreau's most famous chapter from his book that he wrote, Solitude, which was actually an essay that turned out to be book length. All right, so I just wanted to give you one chapter, so listen to it and go ahead and do this. Should take us about 20, 25 minutes, okay? Are there any questions before we start? Because I'd really like to not answer questions during, so it's not disruptive. Yes?
I'll have a hard time processing it if I'm just listening to it. Can I pull the chapter up?
You may. That is a great question. Yes, you may. That's a great question. If you are somebody who has a little trouble just auditory. If you would like to, I actually think if you just Google chapter 5, Thoreau, Solitude, you should just be able to get a, you should be able to get a hit almost right away because it's public domain. So if you would like to look at the text, I sometimes print stuff off. I didn't today because there's 30 copies. So that's actually a great way to do it. So if you're better visually, just please don't be on anything. Here's the problem, right? Then you're all like, that's what I'm on my phone, and you're not. So just that on your device, okay? Any other questions?
Am I still allowed to use the word bank for the last few as a logophile?
Yes,
okay.
You are. Logophiles, a lot of what you're doing is challenging yourself, okay? And the difference between a logophile and a light and how I'm pushing you is a lot. So I don't mind that you say, I can't be pushed today. Okay, it's okay. All right, so here is chapter 5 that we're going to listen to in Solitude. We're going to try to make it, Solitude.
I go and come with a strange liberty. Chapter 5, Solitude. This is a delicious evening when the whole body is one sense and imbibes delight through every pore. I go and come with a strange liberty in nature, a part of herself. As I walk along the stony shore of the pond in my shirt sleeves, though it is cold as well as cloudy and windy, and I see nothing special to attract me, all the elements are unusually congenial to me. The bullfrogs trump to usher in the night, and the note of the whippoorwill is borne on the rippling wind from over the water. Sympathy with the fluttering alder and poplar leaves almost takes away my breath. Yet, like the lake, my serenity is rippled, but not ruffled. These small waves raised by the evening wind are as remote from storm as the smooth, reflecting surface. Though it is now dark, the wind still blows and roars in the wood. The waves still dash, and some creatures lull the rest with their notes. The repose is never complete. The wildest animals do not repose, but seek their prey now. The fox and skunk and rabbit now roam the fields and woods without fear. They are nature's watchmen, links which connect the days of animated life. When I return to my house, I find that visitors have been there and left their cards, either a bunch of flowers or a wreath of evergreen, or a name in pencil on a yellow walnut leaf or a chip. They who come rarely to the woods take some little piece of the forest into their hands to play with by the way, which they leave, either intentionally or accidentally. One has peeled a willow wand, woven it into a ring, and dropped it on my table. I could always tell if visitors had called in my absence, either by the bended twigs or grass, or the print of their shoes, and generally of what sex or age or quality they were, by some slight trace left, as a flower dropped or a bunch of grass plucked and thrown away, even as far off as the railroad 1/2 mile distant, or by the lingering odor of a cigar or pipe. Nay, I was frequently notified of the passage of a traveler along the highway 60 rods off by the scent of his pipe. There is commonly sufficient space about us. Our horizon is never quite at our elbows. The thick wood is not just at our door, nor the pond, but somewhat is always clearing, familiar and worn by us, appropriated and fenced in some way, and reclaimed from nature. For what reason have I this vast range and circuit, some square miles of unfrequented forest for my privacy, abandoned to me by men? My nearest neighbor is a mile distant, and no house is visible from any place but the hilltops within 1/2 mile of my own. I have my horizon bounded by woods, all to myself, a distant view of the railroad, where it touches the pond on the one hand, and of the fence which skirts the woodland road on the other. but for the most part, it is as solitary where I live as on the prairies. It is as much Asia or Africa as New England. I have, as it were, my own sun and moon and stars, and a little world all to myself. At night there was never a traveler passed my house or knocked at my door, more than if I were the first or last man, unless it were in the spring, when at long intervals some came from the village to fish for pouts. They plainly fished much more in the Walden pond of their own natures, and baited their hooks with darkness. But they soon retreated, usually with light baskets, and left the world to darkness and to me, and the black kernel of the night was never profaned by any human neighborhood. I believe that men are generally still a little afraid of the dark, though the witches are all hung, and Christianity and candles have been introduced. Yet I experienced sometimes that the most sweet and tender, the most innocent and encouraging society may be found in any natural object, even for the poor misanthrope and most melancholy man. There can be no very black melancholy to him who lives in the midst of nature and has his senses still. There was never yet such a storm, but it was Aeolian music to a healthy and innocent ear. Nothing can rightly compel a simple and brave man to a vulgar sadness. While I enjoy the friendship of the seasons, I trust that nothing can make life a burden to me. The gentle rain which waters my beans and keeps me in the house today is not drear and melancholy, but good for me too. If it should continue so long as to cause the seeds to rot in the ground and destroy the potatoes in the lowlands, it would still be good for the grass on the uplands. And being good for the grass, it would be good for me. Sometimes when I compare myself with other men, it seems as if I were more favored by the gods than they, beyond any deserts that I am conscious of, as if I had a warrant and surety at their hands which my fellows have not, and were especially guided and guarded. I do not flatter myself, but if it be possible, they flatter me. I have never felt lonesome or in the least oppressed by a sense of solitude, but once, and that was a few weeks after I came to the woods, when for an hour I doubted if the near neighborhood of man was not essential to a serene and healthy life. To be alone was something unpleasant, but I was at the same time conscious of a slight insanity in my mood and seemed to foresee my recovery. In the midst of a gentle rain, while these thoughts prevailed, I was suddenly sensible of such sweet and beneficent society in nature, in the very pattering of the drops, and in every sound and sight around my house, an infinite and unaccountable friendliness all at once, like an atmosphere sustaining me, as made the fancied advantages of human neighborhood insignificant, and I have never thought of them since. Every little pine needle expanded and swelled with sympathy and befriended me. I was so distinctly made aware of the presence of something kindred to me, even in the scenes which we are accustomed to call wild and dreary, and also that the nearest of blood to me and humanist was not a person or a villager, that I thought no place could ever be strange to me again. Mourning untimely consumes the sad. Few are their days in the land of the living. Beautiful daughter of Tuscar. Some of my pleasantest hours were during the long rainstorms in the spring or fall, which confined me to the house for the afternoon as well as the forenoon, soothed by their ceaseless roar and pelting, when an early twilight ushered in a long evening in which many thoughts had time to take root and unfold themselves. In those driving northeast rains which tried the village houses so, when the maids stood ready with the mop and pail in front entries to keep the deluge out, I sat behind my door in my little house, which was all entry, and thoroughly enjoyed its protection. In one heavy thunder shower, the lightning struck a large pitch pine across the pond, making a very conspicuous and perfectly regular spiral groove from top to bottom, an inch or more deep and 4 or 5 inches wide, as you would groove a walking stick. I passed it again the other day, and was struck with awe on looking up and beholding that mark, now more distinct than ever, where a terrific and resistless bolt came down out of the harmless sky 8 years ago. Men frequently say to me, I should think you would feel lonesome down there and want to be nearer to folks, rainy and snowy days and nights especially. I am tempted to reply to such, this whole earth which we inhabit is but a point in space. How far apart, think you, dwell the two most distant inhabitants of yonder star, the breadth of whose disk cannot be appreciated by our instruments? Why should I feel lonely? Is not our planet in the Milky Way? This which you put seems to me not to be the most important question. What sort of space is that which separates a man from his fellows and makes him solitary? I have found that no exertion of the legs can bring two minds much nearer to one another. What do we want most to dwell near to? Not to many men, surely. The depot, the post office, the bar room, the meeting house, the schoolhouse, the grocery, Beacon Hill, or the 5 Points, where men most congregate, but to the perennial source of our life. Once in all our experience, we have found that to issue, as the willow stands near the water and sends out its roots in that direction. This will vary with different natures, but this is the place where a wise man will dig his cellar. I one evening overtook one of my townsmen who has accumulated what is called a handsome property, though I never got a fair view of it, on the Walden Road, driving a pair of cattle to market, who inquired of me how I could bring my mind to give up so many of the comforts of life. I answered that I was very sure I liked it passably well. I was not joking. And so I went home to my bed and left him to pick his way through the darkness and the mud to Brighton, which place he would reach sometime in the morning. Any prospect of awakening or coming to life to a dead man makes indifferent all times and places. The place where that may occur is always the same, and indescribably pleasant to all our senses. For the most part, we allow only outlying and transient circumstances to make our occasions. They are, in fact, the cause of our distraction. Nearest to all things is that power which fashions their being. Next to us, the grandest laws are continually being executed. Next to us is not the workman whom we have hired, with whom we love so well to talk, but the workman whose work we are. How vast and profound is the influence of the subtle powers of heaven and earth. We seek to perceive them, and we do not see them. We seek to hear them, and we do not hear them. Identified with the substance of things, they cannot be separated from them. They cause that in all the universe men purify and sanctify their hearts, and clothe themselves in their holiday garments to offer sacrifices and oblations to their ancestors. It is an ocean of subtle intelligences. They are everywhere, above us, on our left, on our right. They environ us on all sides. We are the subjects of an experiment which is not a little interesting to me. Can we not do without the society of our gossips a little while under these circumstances? Have our own thoughts to cheer us? Confucius says truly, virtue does not remain as an abandoned orphan. It must of necessity have neighbors. With thinking, we may be beside ourselves in a sane sense. By a conscious effort of the mind, we can stand aloof from actions and their consequences, and all things, good and bad, go by us like a torrent. We are not wholly involved in nature. I may be either the driftwood in the stream or Indra in the sky looking down on it. I may be affected by a theatrical exhibition. On the other hand, I may not be affected by an actual event which appears to concern me much more. I only know myself as a human entity, the scene, so to speak, of thoughts and affections, and am sensible of a certain doubleness by which I can stand as remote from myself as from another. However intense my experience, I am conscious of the presence and criticism of a part of me, which, as it were, is not a part of me, but spectator sharing no experience, but taking note of it, and that is no more I than it is you. When the play, it may be the tragedy, of life is over, the spectator goes his way. It was a kind of fiction, a work of the imagination only so far as he was concerned. This doubleness may easily make us poor neighbors and friends sometimes. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude. We are, for the most part, more lonely when we go abroad among men than when we stay in our chambers. A man thinking or working is always alone, let him be where he will. Solitude is not measured by the miles of space that intervene between a man and his fellows. The really diligent student in one of the crowded hives of Cambridge College is as solitary as a dervish in the desert. The farmer can work alone in the field or the woods all day, hoeing or chopping, and not feel lonesome because he is employed. But when he comes home at night, he cannot sit down in a room alone, at the mercy of his thoughts, but must be where he can see the folks and recreate, and, as he thinks, remunerate himself for his day's solitude. And hence he wonders how the student can sit alone in the house all night and most of the day, without ennui and the blues. But he does not realize that the student, though in the house, is still at work in his field, and chopping in his woods, as the farmer in his, and in turn seeks the same recreation and society that the latter does, though it may be a more condensed form of it. Society is commonly too cheap. We meet at very short intervals, not having had time to acquire any new value for each other. We meet at meals 3 times a day and give each other a new taste of that old musty cheese that we are. We have had to agree on a certain set of rules called etiquette and politeness to make this frequent meeting tolerable, and that we need not come to open war. We meet at the post office and at the sociable and about the fireside every night. We live thick and are in each other's way and stumble over one another, and I think that we thus lose some respect for one another. Certainly, less frequency would suffice for all important and hearty communications. Consider the girls in a factory, never alone, hardly in their dreams. It would be better if there were but one inhabitant to a square mile, as where I live. The value of a man is not in his skin, that we should touch him. I have heard of a man lost in the woods and dying of famine and exhaustion at the foot of a tree, whose loneliness was relieved by the grotesque visions with which, owing to bodily weakness, his diseased imagination surrounded him, and which he believed to be real. So also, owing to bodily and mental health and strength, we may be continually cheered by a like but more normal and natural society, and come to know that we are never alone. I have a great deal of company in my house, especially in the morning when nobody calls. Let me suggest a few comparisons that someone may convey an idea of my situation. I am no more lonely than the loon in the pond that laughs so loud, or than Walden Pond itself. What company has that lonely lake, I pray? And yet it has not the blue devils, but the blue angels in it, in the azure tint of its waters. The sun is alone, except in thick weather, when there sometimes appear to be 2, but one is a mock sun. God is alone, but the devil, he is far from being alone. He sees a great deal of company. He is legion. I am no more lonely than a single mullein or dandelion in a pasture, or a bean leaf, or sorrel, or a horsefly, or a bumblebee. I am no more lonely than the millbrook, or a weathercock, or the north star, or the south wind, or an April shower, or a January thaw, or the first spider in a new house. I have occasional visits in the long winter evenings when the snow falls fast and the wind howls in the wood, from an old settler and original proprietor who is reported to have dug Walden Pond and stoned it and fringed it with pine woods, who tells me stories of old time and of new eternity. And between us, we manage to pass a cheerful evening with social mirth and pleasant views of things, even without apples or cider. A most wise and humorous friend whom I love much, who keeps himself more secret than ever did Gough or Wally. And though he is thought to be dead, none can show where he is buried. An elderly dame, too, dwells in my neighborhood, invisible to most persons, in whose odorous herb garden I love to stroll sometimes, gathering simples and listening to her fables. For she has a genius of unequaled fertility, and her memory runs back farther than mythology, and she can tell me the original of every fable, and on what fact everyone is founded, for the incidents occurred when she was young. A ruddy and lusty old dame who delights in all weathers and seasons, and is likely to outlive all her children yet. The indescribable innocence and beneficence of nature, of sun and wind and rain, of summer and winter, such health, such cheer, they afford forever. And such sympathy have they ever with our race, that all nature would be affected, and the sun's brightness fade, and the winds would sigh humanely, and the clouds rain tears, and the woods shed their leaves and put on mourning in midsummer, if any man should ever for a just cause grieve. Shall I not have intelligence with the earth? Am I not partly leaves and vegetable mold myself? What is the pill which will keep us well, serene, contented? Not my or thy great-grandfathers, but our great-grandmother Nature's universal, vegetable, botanic medicines, by which she has kept herself young always, outlived so many old pars in her day, and fed her health with their decaying fatness. For my panacea, instead of one of those quack vials of a mixture dipped from Acheron in the Dead Sea, which come out of those long, shallow, black schooner-looking wagons which we sometimes see made to carry bottles, let me have a draught of undiluted morning air. Morning air. If men will not drink of this at the fountainhead of the day, why then we must even bottle up some and sell it in the shops for the benefit of those who have lost their subscription ticket to the morning time in this world. But remember, it will not keep quite till noonday, even in the coolest cellar, but drive out the stopples long ere that, and follow westward the steps of Aurora. I am no worshipper of Hygeia, who was the daughter of that old herb doctor Aesculapius, and who is represented on monuments holding a serpent in one hand, and in the other a cup out of which the serpent sometimes drinks, but rather of Hebe, cupbearer to Jupiter, who was the daughter of Juno and wild lettuce, and who had the power of restoring gods and men to the vigor of youth. She was probably the only thoroughly sound-conditioned, healthy, and robust young lady that ever walked the globe, and wherever she came, it was spring.